Welcome on into Spillane Field. My name's Henrique DaMour. To my right is JD Raucci. To my left is Cam Stuart. The Gatemen have bounced back. They beat the Chatham Anglers last night 7-3. And today they welcome the Hyannis Harbor Hawks and some furry friends as well for Bark at the Park. Now, the ship seems to be righted for the Gatemen. Breathing a little easier, transition period, post-Team USA departure. But, let's get into some specifics here. Offensively, things have started to go well for the Gatemen, haven't they, JD?
Well, yeah, after, against Hyannis earlier this week on Tuesday, they had 12 hits. They just couldn't really get anything going with runners in scoring position. Couldn't get anything going extra base-wise, but the hitting has been good. Another good performance last night, obviously, the 7-3 win over the Chatham Anglers here at Spillane Field. So the offense has gotten back on the right track. We've kind of seen a lot of guys start to either up their game or be inserted into the lineup and play well through the first couple of games without the Team USA guys in Andrew Vaughn, Golden Spikes winner. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And Bryson Stott, who had a walk-off single for Team USA a couple of days ago. So those guys continue to just rail in the accolades. But going back to this Gatemen team, we've really seen a couple of guys step up. We've seen some others kind of be inserted into the lineup and start getting things going. And it's been from a lot of different guys because we haven't seen the exact same lineup in any of the games since the Team USA guys have left. We've seen Drew Millis and Luke Roscom share time behind the plate. We've also seen Ryan Kreidler, Sahid Valenzuela, Oliver Dunn, Isaac Collins. All of them have played in the middle infield. So it's really been important and impressive to see the Gatemen do it with a lot of different bats. It hasn't just been one or two guys that have really been contributing. Drew Millis a couple of hits the other night. Michael Lamditas a couple of hits the other night, although he is now gone. So it's an encouraging sign to see this offense kind of trending back in the right direction. We saw them light up YD in game number 1 on Sunday. Game number 2, not so much. And then 12 hits, as I mentioned, in the Hyannis game, but not a lot of run production. Last night, a much-needed change in that direction against Chatham.
And not just getting it done on the offensive side of things, but on the defense and pitching, things seem to be a little better. The hiccup is over.
Yeah, especially defensively. I've been so impressed because we talk about those Team USA guys leaving. Andrew Vaughn and Bryson Stott, both excellent defenders. We knew about Stott coming in, but I was really impressed with how Andrew Vaughn played defensively at first base. And they've been rotating so many guys in those few positions on the infield, and they've all stepped up. They've rotated in Kreidler and Sahid Valenzuela at shortstop. They've both been excellent. Parker Phillips has held his own over at first base. Obviously, the platoon at catcher with Drew Millis and Luke Roscom, a guy who is not normally a catcher at Nebraska, still getting used to that position, has shown a lot of moxie in being able to come in and still be pretty solid behind the plate. And Drew Millis, obviously an excellent defensive catcher, but also not just the infield, the outfield has been terrific. Bryant Packard's arm at left, we've already seen him throw a couple of guys out. Can't say enough about Skylar Hunter's play in center field either. So there's not much to say because they've really picked up where those guys have left off, even with all those guys rotating in, especially at second base as well. All kinds of guys. They may not be getting the offensive production from second base, but defensive has been so great. So got to be impressed with the Gatemen. Starting pitching has turned the corner as well, like you said. Ken Waldachuk, obviously the hiccup the other night against Hyannis, but Joy Matulovic comes back last night and doesn't miss a beat.
Let's get into last game. Joy Matulovic obviously had a great game, but you mentioned Cam Bryant Packard, and obviously we know about his arm in left field, we know about the power bat he had at ECU, but it's good to see him finally turn it on, and he did so in last night's game.
Hit a home run last night. You can't see much more about him. We were wondering, Andrew Vaughn left the Cape with 5 home runs on the season, and nobody else had really gotten it going with the long ball power for the Gatemen. Everybody else had just 1 home run, but Bryant Packard hit his second last night after hitting number 1 against YD on Sunday in game 1 of the doubleheader. So you're finally seeing, and that's something I talked about in the pregame show yesterday on Wednesday was we need to see some more extra base power from these guys in this Gatemen lineup, because that was the big problem against Hyannis, was the fact that you really just couldn't get anything going. You got runners on, but then you couldn't move them along. It was really tough to watch, and now you're finally getting guys on base, but then you're moving them around, and it's not just station-to-station baseball, as Cam likes to call it. It's not just, so let's single here, then we'll have a walk, then we'll have another single. It's getting guys on and moving them around the base paths quickly and efficiently. Bryant Packard with, as we said, a home run last night, a very encouraging sign. Then last night also, I keep saying last night, Wednesday, of course the off day yesterday on Thursday. Also, Sahid Valenzuela has impressed me. He's still hitting over the 350 mark this season in terms of average, and he's done it from both sides of the plate. Right-handed, left-handed, doesn't really matter. The switch hitter has been absolutely stellar. He continued that on Wednesday, had 2 hits in that game. Couple of RBIs as well for the Cal State Fullerton Titans, so I've been very impressed with those 2 guys specifically moving forward in the lineup. They'll both be in the lineup tonight, so it should be a good night in terms of offensive production for the Gatemen.
And something else was mentioned before as well, Cam, you said the starting pitching teams have turned a corner. Ken Waldachuk had that hiccup, but Joey Matulovic, a breath of fresh air, doing what he does best, and he dominated the Anglers on Wednesday.
Yeah, and the back end of the Gatemen rotation has been pretty solid throughout this year. They've really gotten the job done, but you rely on your 1 and 2 guys. And Ken Waldachuk had the bad game the other night at Hyannis, real nightmare for him, something we haven't seen from him at all this year. And so you got to fall back on the guys you can rely on, and it starts with your ace, Joey Matulovic. And he was just outstanding on Wednesday night, another 5 innings, shutout work, or maybe 1 run, and he just had all his pitches working again. I know we say that every time we talk about him, but it really is key. And he's sort of at the end of his Gateman tenure here. He probably only has 1 more start left with the team before he plans to sign with the Brewers. So he's kind of letting it all air out right now in the Cape League, and it's been proving major dividends for him so far. I mean, can't say enough about him. He's got swing and miss stuff, striking guys out. He's not giving up the big hits, so it's just been as good as advertised. That's all I can say about him.
And the wins, or the dividends, have started to pay out in the form of wins. Some of them of the walk-off variety, some of them of blowout variety. Either way, the Gatemen have figured out a way to finagle the Dubs. They've got on to 10 victories this year, matching Hyannis for the only 2 teams with 10 wins apiece. And Don Sneddon has to like what he's seeing. But we caught up with, our Mary Orders caught up with Gatemen manager Don Sneddon earlier today.
Thanks, guys. So, Coach, we talked a little bit a few days ago about how teams are ever changing in this league with guys coming and going. Is there any ability to scout before games?
No, you can do it on paper. They do have, on Point Streak, they have some stats you can see, and you get some tendencies on that. It's basically a chart of where they've hit the ball and all that. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. But as far as physically putting some eyes on them, no, you can't do that.
Do you try to watch the other team while they're doing batting practice or anything?
Well, you look just to confirm some swings, but everybody can hit in batting practice. So it depends on the batting practice pitcher. If he's just lobbing them up there and they're hitting bombs, what are they going to hit when it's 91, 92? So really, batting practice doesn't really give you a great indication, but I do watch them, and just to confirm maybe that we know this guy has some good power or doesn't. But overall, you won't get much out of batting practice.
Mm-hmm. And we're facing Hyannis again after a rough loss a few days ago. The interesting thing was we had the same amount of hits as them. What are we going to have to do to convert on our hits today?
Well, we got to sort of what we did a couple nights ago. We got to get some guys on with no outs, and then that way we can move them around, and then a fly ball can mean a run versus getting started with 2 outs and the fly ball is just an out. And that's sort of what happened. We were just out of sync, and that happens in baseball. You get a lot of hits, and give their pitcher credit. He got himself out of jams, and we didn't get that 2-out hit.
And what are we going to have to do to contain them?
Well, they're a good hitting club. So we got a good pitcher throwing in Garcia tonight. He mixes well. So hopefully he can keep him off balance and all that. And we know him a little bit better, so we know how to pitch him a little bit better. So I'm expecting a much better game than we did last time.
And what are you expecting out of Garcia tonight?
Well, I mean, he's a finesse pitcher. He doesn't overpower you. He challenges you. You'll see him be able to get 4 pitches over for a strike. And I don't care what level you're at. If you can do that, you can have success.
Coach, thanks so much. Guys, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Great stuff from her as always. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll break down the starting pitching matchup and everything you need to know before first pitch against Hyannis today.
What's donated here stays here. All blood that is donated to Cape Cod Healthcare stays on Cape Cod to help the lives of your friends, family, and neighbors. Learn more about donating blood, platelets, or hosting a blood drive at capecodhealth.org/blood center.
Welcome back to the Gatemen Pregame Show. My name's Henrique DaMour, Cam Stuart, and JD Raucci. Let's get into it. Face the Hyannis Harbor Hawks for the 3rd time this year and for the 2nd time in a row for first place. The Gatemen today, 10-6 is what they come into today, and the Hyannis Harbor Hawks 10-4-1. Both teams have been embarrassed by each other already at the respective home parks. And today, a good pitching matchup today for Hyannis. Travis Marr of Clemson. Let's hear about him.
Yeah, Travis Marr was lit up in his first start on the Cape League, giving up 8 earned runs in just 3 innings, but he bounced back nicely last week against Falmouth, pitched 4 shutout innings, only gave up 2 hits, struck out 3, but also walked 3, so the base runners were there against him. He's a guy coming off an arm injury 2 years ago, and he was kind of eased back in at Clemson. He had a bullpen role this year, only started 2 games, and had an ERA over 6, and hitters hit over 300 against him. So it was a bit of a work in progress for him all year, and that kind of carried over into the Cape, but he has settled down nicely, and who knows, with a guy like that, Jekyll and Hyde already on the season, we don't know, and I don't know if Hyannis knows what they're going to get tonight out of him, but the stuff is there. He's got some strikeout stuff, just needs to limit the walks as well.
We know the bats are there for Hyannis. They lit up the Gatemen 9-1 the last time these two teams played, but they will need a solid pitching performance if they can get going against a resurgent Gatemen offense. On the Wareham side of things, Ryan Garcia, a guy who had an absolutely electric outing in his debut against Orleans. JD, tell us more about that.
Well, 9 strikeouts and 4 innings of work. Can't get much more electric than that. You talked about how Mar has strikeout stuff. Apparently so does Ryan Garcia. We didn't really see it this season for him at UCLA. Averaged just over a strikeout per inning this season with the Bruins, but he had multiple strikeouts in every inning against a really good Orleans Firebirds lineup. Orleans may be one of the best offenses in the league this season when all things are considered in terms of the kind of talent they have on that team. But really the recipe for success for Garcia was the breaking ball. He located it well. It was absolutely fooling hitters. And it's impressive that he had 9 strikeouts because he's only, 5'10", 5'11", not a super big guy on the mound. You don't expect high strikeout numbers from a guy of his size. You kind of expect him to be more of a ground ball pitcher. We'll see if he bucks that trend tonight or gets back on trend, I should say, buck the trend with the strikeouts. Let's see if he gets back to being that ground ball fly-out pitcher that really isn't going to strike out a ton of guys. But, with that size, he also gets a different kind of spin rate on the ball that is different than what hitters are used to seeing against a bigger guy, which is typically the frame of a pitcher. So with a smaller guy like Garcia on the mound, anything can really happen. He can give you the strikeouts, he can give you the ground ball, fly ball outs. Should be really interesting to see what we see from him in the second appearance of his season this year, because outing number 1 was absolutely magnificent against Orleans.
He said the breaking ball was working well, even the fastball due to his frame, unorthodox, but it fooled a lot of very good Orleans hitters, like you were saying, JD. Saw a lot of some of the ugliest swings and misses I've ever seen due to the stuff of Ryan Garcia. Our Mary Orders got to catch up with Mr. Garcia and see just how the heck you can improve on 9 strikeouts in 4 innings. Have a listen.
Thanks, guys. So, Ryan, this is your second start for the Gatemen. Your first start, you had 9 strikeouts over 4 innings. What did you like out of that last outing?
I like my conviction. We talk about that a lot at school, having conviction and being just a competitor on the mound.
Can you explain, what conviction, what that would mean?
Yeah, I define it as aggressive confidence, going on the mound and being confident in every pitch that you throw.
And what are you hoping to get out of tonight's game?
I think, I just want to repeat, last outing, hopefully it won't be, just like I said, just being competitive and having conviction again, yeah.
Have you been working on anything specific over the past week with Coach Lawler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Coach Lawler and I have been talking. We want to get more leg drive out of my back leg. Hopefully that'll get more power into my fastball and other pitches, yeah.
And now time for some fun questions. So you go to school in California, and you're from California,
yes,
correct?
I'm from Pasadena.
And what food do you miss most from home?
I don't miss a lot of food. Obviously, the Mexican food in California is pretty good, but the food here is definitely different. I had my first lobster roll yesterday. That was really good. I'm a fan of all foods.
What kind of Mexican dish do you usually get?
I'd say tacos.
Okay. Who's your celebrity crush?
Megan Fox.
Good one. Who is the funniest player on the Gatemen?
I'd say Jared Horn.
This is the second time someone said that. Who has the best fashion on the team?
Best fashion, Cade Cavalli.
Who would you want to hang out with the most, outside of baseball?
I think all of them. They're all pretty fun to hang around with. Yeah.
Good. Don't want to piss anyone off. And lastly, who is an MLB player you look up to and why?
I'd say Max Scherzer, just because he emulates, that drive and competitive aspect of baseball, and it's fun to watch.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Guys, back to you.
Welcome on into another edition of Get on the Beat. My name's Henrique DaMour. I'm with our beat writer, Ian Becerra. Ian, how you doing today?
Great today. How are you, Henrique?
I'm fantastic. So, the talk of the town around Wareham and around college baseball around the country is that our very own Andrew Vaughn was voted last night the winner of the 2018 Golden Spikes Award. And that is, for those who don't know, the Heisman of college baseball. And this is all made all the more impressive. Andrew Vaughn, a rising junior, beat out a bunch of graduates. A really impressive field. A former Wareham Gateman who was drafted #1 overall in Casey Mize. Cody Clemens, who went in the second round of the same team, the Detroit Tigers, and Brady Singer as well. What sets him apart? I mean, we know the numbers. He hits over 400. He gets on base at a ridiculous clip. He's got a lot of power. But what really set him apart, intangibles-wise?
Well, Henrique, I'd say it's his work ethic. I mean, he comes to the park day in, day out, and we only saw him for a couple weeks here, but we were teased, and we really got to see what he did, over the course of his season, and that's show up day in, day out, put in good work in the cage, have a good approach up at the dish, and something he talked about in an interview we did with him last week was talking about how he's a big first pitch fastball hunter, wants to get ahead on guys and really seek out that fastball and drive it. And so I think his approach at the plate is something that sets him apart, and just that work ethic, those intangibles, I think, like you were saying, they're second to none.
And like you said, I mean, he's an incredible offensive producer, and it's because of stuff like that. I mean, you can't have that kind of production if you don't have an approach at the plate, focus on timing, being a fastball hunter. But defensively, that's something that doesn't show up in the stats all the time. He was one of the best defensive assets we had in this infield.
Mm-hmm. Henrique, that's what impressed me, honestly, one of the most about Andrew Vaughn. We're going to talk about his offense, ad nauseum. There's just so many things that impress you. But when you're talking about his defense, that's something that I wasn't expecting. Normally, when you see those big first baseman guys, they're sluggers. They can't really field their position. They're just kind of hidden over there. But Vaughn was a guy who, he was phenomenal at first base. Didn't make an error, really held his own over there, picked balls in the dirt, just did everything well over there. And that's something that impressed me just so much with him.
The first team all-defensive member at the Pac-12 conference this year, along with being first team all-Pac-12, Pac-12 player of the year. But he can really do it all. You mentioned he's done it pretty much every which way, on defense, in the field, or on defense at the plate, pretty much everywhere. But the one thing maybe he doesn't have going for him for a traditional, like you said, first base slugger type guy is his size. He's under 6 foot, which normally you don't see out of first round picks. But how do you think something like this, a tangible, I'm the best player in the country, is voted by not me? How do you think that helps his draft stock?
Well, I think it puts the haters on notice. It's something that you can look back to and say, hey, I was voted this, best player in the country, whether, you're looking at his size as a hindrance for him, but you look at it and say, hey, he put up the numbers in college, and that's something that always stands out to me. If you can put up the numbers, you put up the numbers. They don't lie. They speak for themselves. And that's just something I think going forward that he's really going to have going for him. And again, next year, like you said, he's going to be a junior. He still has another year to produce, do it again. And if he does it again, we're going to be seeing a first-round guy.
Thank you, Ian Becerra. My name's Henrique DaMour. Andrew Vaughn, congratulations if you're watching. We're all incredibly proud to have you on our field and in our hearts forever. Thank you so much. Back to the pregame show.
Make sure you sign your child up today for the Gatemen Robertson's GMC Youth Clinics. This year we have 5 one-week sessions for children 5 to 14. We also have 2 special sessions for hitting and pitching open to teens. Registration is available online at gatemen.org or through forms available at the merchandise booth.
Welcome back to the Gatemen pregame show. As I mentioned before, these two teams, they don't like each other. They're sitting at the top of the West Division. They've both been embarrassed by each other. 9-0 in favor of the Gatemen a couple weeks ago, 9-1 in favor of Hyannis just the other day at McKeon Park. And tomorrow back at McKeon Park. We'll talk about that later. Right now, what do the Gatemen have to do to not get embarrassed again?
Well, tonight I think it's going to be about the starting pitching. Ryan Garcia will be the starting pitcher tonight for the Gatemen, but we're also expecting to see Easton Lucas in a piggyback role, so it'll kind of be a dual start. And what I'm saying, when I say that the starting pitching needs to be good, is what I mean is I don't want to see a bridge guy, a bullpen guy, have to come in relief of Ryan Garcia to get to Easton Lucas, because you're not going to have Easton Lucas, a starter, start in the middle of an inning where maybe Ryan Garcia has gotten into trouble. So eliminate that bridge guy in between, have a good couple of innings from Ryan Garcia, piggyback that with a good couple of innings from Easton Lucas, let the offense get going, because as we've seen with the Gatemen pitching staff all season long, when the offense goes, the pitching goes as well. So we need to see a good start from Ryan Garcia to get him seamlessly right into Easton Lucas, and if the Gatemen do that, they're going to set themselves up to have a pretty good game.
Good start by Ryan Garcia. Not much can go wrong after that. But Cam, what else do the Gatemen need to do you think?
Well, I'm going to pick the low-hanging fruit that we have here. After the 9-1 loss in Hyannis on Tuesday, the Gatemen equaled them in hits. It was 12-12, and the Gatemen were only able to push 1 run across. So I actually used this as one of my points earlier in the year, but they got to have that big hit. They got to keep the line moving, maybe ride the boogie, if you will. They need to keep that going and just not play station to station and get those crooked numbers on the board.
Thank you so much, Cam, for a metaphor and pop culture reference laden keys to the game. For Cam Stuart, for JD Raucci, thank you so much. First pitch coming up at 6:30 tonight. Harbor Hawks at Spillane. You won't want to miss it on the Gatemen Baseball Network.